Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Very excited for this evening. My name is Dave Burns. I'm the Story Center Publication Manager, and we are just so excited to announce the release of A Little Touch of Magic by author Marian Rakestraw. She'll be on here in just a moment, but first just want to do some quick introductions and overviews about the event. There will be a drawing for a signed paperback copy, as well as a set of trading cards that were designed to go along with our characters. We're going to be doing that towards the end of the event. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you're interested in joining the drawing, please chat in the word magic, M-A-G-I-C, right there on the screen. Chat that in to us, and we'll be taking those drawings through the interview section, but close that right as the author starts the reading. She's going to be doing some readings, and so we'll close up right there. So if you're interested in getting a signed paperback copy or a set of the trading cards, type in that word magic in the chat, and we'll do a drawing a little bit later. This is our first fiction novel published by Woodneath Press, and we're very excited to be delving into the fiction arena, and especially with Marian Rakestraw, who is a storytelling certificate graduate, which is also extremely exciting to have that kind of come full circle. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is go ahead and invite Marian up into the broadcast. And Marian, I believe that you're going, hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I think you had some goodies and some recipes that you were going to share with our folks. Is that right?
I did. A lot of the book takes place in a bakery that's called a House of Carbs, which, if I do say so myself, I thought was quite a good name for a bakery. And when people ask me, like, what are your characters doing in your, right now in your book, Marian, what are you writing? I'm like, they always just had a cup of tea. They always had a cup of tea. They're always eating all the time. And they eat a lot of pastries and sweets in this book. So I thought, we might as well have the lunch in a diner and have tea and snacks. So I made two different things. And if you all want the recipes for them, you can send your email address and I'll be happy to email them both to you. And I picked them for specific reasons. And the first one is Dutch butter cake, which is this stuff right here. And this is something I usually only make at Christmas because, quite frankly, it's so bad for you that probably you should not eat it a lot. But it's really, really good. And I picked it because my main character's name is Rowan, and her aunt, Anya, who runs the bakery, smells like almond all the time. She smells like almond because it is my favorite scent. And so I wanted her to smell just great all the time. And I can imagine serving this really fragrant, rich cake along with a cup of tea in the bakery there. And my version is not magical, but tastes like it might be, maybe. And it's really rich. I cut really big pieces, but you probably should not eat that much at once. So that comes with a warning. And the second thing I made was good old oatmeal raisin cookies, because I feel like oatmeal raisin is the most maligned of all cookies. If there's a cookie tray at a party and there's a lot of different kinds of cookies on it, you know that oatmeal raisin is always left over at the end. I thought it was chocolate chip, but it's not. But I really love oatmeal raisin cookies. And I gotta tell the truth always. And the best oatmeal raisin cookies in the world are made by my Uncle Bill, who makes them every day. There's always an oatmeal raisin cookie there. And I don't know what he's putting in his that makes them so superior, but I try my best. And this is a basic Quaker Oats oatmeal raisin cookie, but I always think like my book takes place the junction of the mundane and the fantastical. And I always think if you just nudge the world a little bit, you can make it a little past that intersection. So when I make oatmeal raisin cookies, I do two things to kind of elevate them, make them a little more magic. One is that I toast the oatmeal before I make the cookies, mix them with a little melted butter, toast them in the oven to make them just a little more decadent. And the other thing is that I plump the raisins. I pour hot water in them and make them big, fat, juicy raisins instead of little nasty, hard nugget raisins. And I think both of those make it a better cookie. So I know Dave has a cup of tea. I have a cup of tea. I have some snacks. I don't know about you, Dave. You have snacks?
I don't have snacks right now, but I do have a lovely chai latte, which is
excellent. And I have promised to send you some snacks, so you'll have
thank
snacks.
you.
So everybody else has something to drink and something to eat while we settle in.
That sounds fantastic. And I just want to remind everybody that if you're interested in winning a signed copy of paperback or a set of the trading cards, just chat in the word magic, and we will be doing that drawing a little bit later. So great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Marian, for sharing those wonderful recipes with us. And I know if folks are interested, they can just reach out. We can get them a copy of those as well.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of get an opportunity to chat with you a little bit, learn a little bit about your process, about your book. And I think this will just be a lot of fun. So if you are ready, I'll start with some questions. And if you have any questions, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to chat those in as well. And we will definitely be doing Q&A towards the end. So we'd love to hear from you. So first and foremost, this is just a wonderful book. I loved it. I love your writing style. It's just so phenomenal. But I guess my biggest question is, what inspired you to write this book? If you want to talk the story about kind of this book.
Sure. This book started off as a national novel project, which is something I do every November. I write a 50,000-word novel. And this is a true story. This book was inspired by a news article that I read, which does not sound like the likeliest news article in the world to inspire a middle grade, kind of cozy, charming book. It was a news article about a guy out on the West Coast who was maybe doing some drugs and not in his right mind. And he thought he was a high elf, and he jumped on this lady's car in traffic and stabbed it a lot. And well, I thought, the police came and hauled him away because that's what happens to you if you jump on people's cars and stab them. But I thought, what if he really was a high elf? What if he was really trying to protect that lady, and he really is a high elf, and he's not some guy who needs to make better life choices? So that was the inspiration for the whole book. So my main character, Rowan Finnegan, at the beginning of the book, her dad is in jail for, cat alert, 2 cats. Her dad is in jail for stabbing a police car 4 times with a broadsword. He thinks it's possessed by demons. And of course, it is possessed by demons. So that's the premise that I started with, and everything else went from there.
That's an amazing use of a news article turning into this story.
You never know. And information is all around you.
Absolutely. And a nice twist that it actually was possessed by demons. Cars rarely are. So that was a nice little twist there. So as I mentioned, I love your writing style and I love your voice. I think your voice just comes through so strong in this book. Could you share with us a little bit about what your writing process is like?
I've tried everything. I tell people this. I'm always open to trying new things and experimenting with how I go about writing things. And in the writing word, there's plotters and there's pantsers. There's people who plan ahead everything, and there's people who just, and I'm really somewhere in the middle. I like to call it being a discovery writer. I know a bunch of stuff about my story. Usually I know an awful lot about my characters because I feel like if you know them really well, you can predict how they would react naturally in a situation. And that's important to me, that they act authentically, because that's not something I want to rewrite. But the actual events, I frequently don't know what they're going to do, and I just let them tell me the story as we go along. And it's kind of exciting for me to find out what they're going to do. Some things in this book appeared suddenly with no planning on my part, and there's some of my very favorite parts of the story. Then I don't mind a good rewrite. Rewriting is fun.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Well, as you mentioned earlier, there is a lot of food mentioned in this book.
Yes, there is.
It's just reading this book, makes you hungry because they're in a bakery. Yes, there's a lot of food mentioned. So my question for you, do you have a favorite reading or writing snack? Kind of what's your go-to thing? And while you're answering this, I'm going to encourage attendees to chat in their favorite. So if you have a favorite writing snack or reading snack, feel free to chat that in and share.
Oh, I am a well-known addict of Diet Pepsi Cola. You'll see there's actually a Pepsi sign right behind me on the wall. And so I often have that, or I'll have a cup of tea. I try to remember to have a cup of water, but they're not as exciting for me as a cup of tea or beautiful Diet Pepsi is. And when I am in drafting mode, when I'm writing a book in draft mode, I will line up Jelly Belly Juicy Pear jelly beans along the top of my keyboard and allow myself one jelly bean every 250 words. So
that's fantastic. And I know you've shared that with me before about doing that via Nano as well, right?
Yeah.
Doing some kind of tricks with Nano.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
You know, I will write for snacks. So I don't want to do it. I'm like, oh, not hard making. Oh, it's so hard. If there's a prize, I'll do it. And I'm pretty cheap too. I'll write 250 whole words for one jelly bean. That's not too shabby.
That's fantastic. Oh man. So you got a very unique opportunity, and that was working with an amazing graphic designer, Mikhail Shaded, who is just phenomenal. And I'm so glad you got this opportunity on this project. So what was it like to work with him and kind of bring your vision to life?
Can we just talk about Mikhail for the rest of this time?
Absolutely,
because he is amazing. Okay, you cannot eat that. When you know, people say, well, when you go to get your book published, don't bring any preconceived ideas of what you want the cover to look like or what you want any of the materials to look like, because people are going to do what they want to do. And when we started this, one of my goals was to try to help or allow other people to do their thing, you know, to find their vision for it. And when we met with Mikhail first, I said, Mikhail, I really want you to make the cover you want to make. I want you to follow your vision and express yourself and do your thing. And boy, howdy, I didn't even know how amazing it was going to be. And he has some really great questions about what things in the book were important to me or what my vision for it was. We looked at lots of covers that I liked or didn't like on different books, so he would know kind of how my tastes run. And then let him run with it. And I know that every idea that he brought was a winner. And his work is just spectacular. In the end, the concept for the book here is, this is Rowan, and the symbols that are on the book, the teacup, the leaves, the wrench, the cupcake, are all symbolic of different people in the book. And on the back, which I don't think you have there, is this beauty whose name is Elwood, who is my favorite, and I don't like that. And what got me about Mikhail is that, you know, he would bring us like mock-ups, here's samples, and I would think, wow, that's spectacular, it's so beautiful. He's like, I'll make it better. And I'm like, what do you mean you'll make it better? It's already wonderful, perfect. And he would come back and it would be even more amazing all the way. And he was just an absolute dream to work with, and his work is spectacular. This is one of the trading cards. This is the Elwood trading card.
Yeah, this is amazing what he did with these.
Yeah, I had this crazy idea, hey, maybe we could have trading cards to go with this book, and there are 8 of them. So, and they're all fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
This is Bridget. She's one of the ants. I really love this card. This might be my favorite of all of them. She looks exactly like she should look. He really did a great job capturing the personalities of these people. And I love the one thing I did mention that I really loved in book covers was this kind of Art Deco, Art Nouveau border surrounds, and it's on the main cover of the book and on all the trading cards, and I think it's just spectacular. I'm really could not be more pleased. So Mikhail is like my favorite person now for
he is amazing, and he's such a gifted artist and such a humble and nice guy. I could speak his praises forever, and I would say, but this is about the book launch. But that's part of the process. We've had a number of people, by the way, chat in kind of some of their snack ideas and kind of some of their things that they enjoyed. So things like popcorn M&Ms. I've got some up here. Chocolate Diet Coke. Yeah. So lots of people engaging with this conversation, and I'm really grateful for that. Excuse me. So I too agree. As we got a chance to sit down and talk with Mikhail, it was amazing to see, after having read your book and after having kind of gone through and meet these characters, to be able to see them come to life in such a unique and such a clever way, Marian, that you came up with that. I thought that was great. And again, if any of you are interested in winning a set of these trading cards, or actually physical cards, please chat in the word magic, and we will be taking that drawing here in just a moment. So Marian, were there any other things that you wanted to mention or share kind of about the process or anything throughout the book?
It was the third book that I wrote. The first one is terrible. Really bad. The second one was mostly terrible. And this one, from the get-go, was pretty good. And it took about 20,000 words off the end and rewrote an entirely new ending for it. And it was worth doing. But this sounds a little random and weird, but something I was thinking about today is, why did I write a fairy tale? Why did I write about fairies, of all things to write about? And they're not the little sparkly kind. They are more earthy and more powerful. And I was thinking that it's not like I have a fairy obsession or anything. But when I was a little girl, I'm from South Dakota, we had a cabin in the hills, the Black Hills, which are, if you've ever been to the Black Hills, a magic place. And this little cabin had a next door neighbor, and his name was Mr. Fay. And as you may know, Fay is another word for fairies. And Mr. Fay, I'm convinced to this day that he was a fairy, because he had a special ability, which is that, okay, he lived in a small, low stone house with green window frames, so A+ fairy house. And Mr. Fay could come outside and call out into the mountains. And little animals, this is true, would run down from the mountains and eat out of his hands. Chipmunks, rabbits. I had a skunk once that I saw, and it was just dazzling to me. I would go out there and call and call and call. No little animals. But Mr. Fay would come out, and they would come and they would eat from your hand if he was there. And you can't tell me that's not a fairy. So maybe that's where I got my obsession with fairies.
That is a fantastic story. I knew nothing about that. That was wonderful. Completely unscripted and beautiful. We've had a few people ask, thank you for sharing that, Marian. We've had a few people ask about where to get your book. And thankfully, with the partnerships that we have through different publishing aspects, this book is available anywhere online, anywhere in brick and mortar stores. So anywhere you can think of that that you buy books, you should be able to get a copy of this, whether in paperback, hardback, or ebook, and as well at the library. So it'll be available for checkout there as well. So please feel free to find a copy anywhere and give it a read, because it is amazing. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and close up the drawing. I want to thank everyone for sending in the word magic. And at this time, Marian, pass it over to you. And I think you had some things you were going to read for us. Is that correct?
I did. Dave, I will add too that people, if you don't bring the cards and you would like a set, if you buy a book, let me know and I'll send you a set.
There you go.
David asked me to do a couple readings, and I was like, what can I read that is kind of fun and doesn't give away the whole plot of the book, but kind of introduces you to characters? So I decided on two things, and one is from the book, one isn't. So I'll start with the one that's from the book first. Because this is a middle grade book with a 8th grade heroine, and it takes place in October, A writerly problem that I had was how to get rid of school, because it was going to be a boring, boring book if the character has to get up every day and go to school. And so I was sitting there thinking, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to get her out of school? And I thought, well, let's blow it up. So that's clearly the best solution possible, is that we'll just close the school. So this is the scene where school has happened, and Rowan is back in school, and it's not being a good day because her dad is in jail for stabbing him with a giant sword. And she's met her local mean girls, and she's also met a new friend whose name is Pip. He is the second of my trio of intrepid adventurers, and she has gone to math class. Class started normally enough. There was already a worksheet on my desk when I walked. The clowns in the corner were tearing it into tiny pieces to make spitballs, and Mr. Hooper, the ancient teacher, was plucking the papers from their fingers and fixing them with his patented disapproving stare. It was the same every day. After this initial show, everybody settled down and got to work. Nothing out of the ordinary happened for 10 minutes. Just the scratches and the ruffling of pages as people consulted the text. Then a noise started. It was so quiet at first that I didn't even register it as being worth noting, just a sort of low rumble like the ocean from a distance. It got louder. Gradually, people speaking and unbent from their worksheets. Mr. Hooper went to the door, opened it, and peered out into the hall looking for answers. Then he went to the window and looked there. The roaring was loud enough now that people were covering their ears. They should have been holding their noses. There was a tremendous cracking twang. It sounded like a giant metal tree had been hit by lightning. And then the odor came, swift, sure, and deadly. Mr. Hooper, who was at least 60 and a man of delicate sensibilities anyway, promptly fainted. A few other people looked like they were undecided between following his example or vomiting. I was on board with the vomiting choice. It was awful, more than awful. It smelled like a pig farm, and a gasworks had gotten together and made some sort of mutant baby that combined the worst of themselves. And I knew what it was, instinctively. It was sewage. Not a little toilet blockage, but something exponentially larger and more horrible. I felt dizzy. My brain, still turned to math, started trying to calculate how much sewage the pipes in the school could hold. I made a dash for the door. The hall was already full of students, but there was clearly no consensus way to run. I knew which way I was going. Out. That meant left, and then down the staircase past the encouraging posters, "Be yourself," pasted up by the counselor, then out the front door and far, far away from here, as fast as my feet would carry me. But they never got the chance. The water fountain on the wall at the head of the stairs blew off. A gushing torrent of thick brown sewage out of the broken pipes. There was a groan from the bathroom next to the fountain, a crunching bang, and a river of horrible sludge started flowing out into the hall. Suddenly, I was glad I was on the second floor because I knew what was going to happen next. Gravity and an old school building were going to combine. It was going to start raining poop on the first floor. There was no way I was going down there. I turned and then turned again. I couldn't run and I couldn't stay here. A hand found my own. He pointed down the hall to the end of the building. A large window looked out into the branches of a spreading oak. I shook my head. This is a school. The window isn't going to open. I had to yell to be heard. They do if you throw desks through them, he yelled back over the shriek of our fellow students and the echoing thumps of exploding pipes. He ran to the end of the hall, jumping over puddles of horror, and ducked into the classroom at the end. Senora Murillo's Spanish class. He came out with a table. La Mesa, my brain dutifully recited. La Ventana, it added helpfully. El Arbol. La Mesa is en el Arbol, and with a crash, it was. Pip used a handy chair to bash out the rest of the glass and helped me through into the branches of the tree. A breeze wafted by, and although I wouldn't term it fresh, it was so much better that my head cleared a little. I looked back at the school. A river of ooze snaked down the steps. The lawn was littered with students in various stages of decay. All of them were stained the same shade of middling brown. Kimmy Kaufman sat glassy-eyed, picking at a limp bow that still clung to her hair. The fruity scent of her body spray was long, long gone. Some civic-minded person had dragged or carried Mr. Hooper out on the lawn and laid him next to the statue of Ike, who stood on his plinth, hands on his hips, surveying the total destruction and mayhem that had once been an orderly school so worthy of his name. Pip clung to a branch with his legs tied in a pretzel knot. He, too, was surveying the damage. "So does this happen often around here?" he asked. I couldn't help smiling, even though there was a part of me that was silently screaming in terror. This is the first time I can remember. The closest thing I have for comparison is the time they forgot to put chlorine in a public pool for a couple of weeks and it turned swamp green. We don't get a lot of major disasters around here, generally not newsworthy. That was the thing. My aunt's influence was so strong in this town, bad things just didn't happen. Not really bad things. This should knock your dad off the front page. I suppose so. We still on for this afternoon? I think school is over for today. A tinny wail rose in the distance. The fire truck and probably the ambulance were headed this way, the entire disaster response team of Fairhaven. School's probably over for a while. I'm more than happy to hang out, but no way am I eating a chocolate muffin. I looked back over the writhing, puking mass of brown-stained students. Yeah, Pip agreed. I may never eat chocolate again. So I picked that because it doesn't ruin the plotline and introduces you to some people.
And it's wildly entertaining. So, oh, you know. Oh, that's fantastic. And I know you had another piece. Is that correct?
I do.
That was not included in the book, I believe.
It is not. Originally, there was going to be a sequel to this book, but I'm probably never going to write that or finish writing that novel. But of people who've read this book, the overall crowd favorite character is Elwood, who is a puka and will either take the form of a little soft brown bunny, like he is on the trading card, or a 4-foot-tall still bunny, but dressed and clothed and talks. So he's magic. And Elwood is one of those characters that I knew there was going to be a puka, and he was rabbit-shaped, and he was a sidekick to my main character in this book, but I didn't anticipate Elwood being the way that he is. He just appeared on the page like this. And something to know about him is that he is convinced he's been everywhere and done everything, and that he's a part of everything that's ever happened in the history of everything. And he tells stories about it. And his stories are wildly wrong. Always. And I really love them. And I wanted to read one, but I didn't want to read one from this book because I would rather that when people read it, that they meet those stories for the first time, because they're a lot of fun. And I really love him. So this is a story that Elwood tells in the draft manuscript of the book that will never be written. And in this book, Elwood and Rowan are in Ireland, traveling, and they're camping in an Irish field, and their tent is, because fairies are magic, as predictably lavish and multi-roomed and nice with iron beds in it as you would imagine that it would be. Because we can't expect Elwood to sleep anywhere that's subpar, frankly. I mean, he's not going to be sleeping on the grass. That's not how he rolls. So this is a story that Elwood tells Rowan in that book. It's a history story. Elwood tapped my shoulder and ordered me to bed. He and I were going to share one of the rooms. It wasn't a terrible fate. He wasn't a loud snorer, and since there were 2 narrow beds, I didn't need to worry about him stealing the covers. Still, I surprised myself by failing to fall asleep. Elwood sat on the edge of his bed, ears neatly tucked under a nightcap, and waited. It was part of his guard duties, and he took it very seriously. After a solid half hour, he sighed. Would you like a bedtime story? I'm a little old for that, don't you think? You're never too old for a story. It's not like I'm going to tell you Little Red Riding Hood. For a start, that story has some terrible animal cruelty in it. It'll be a true story from my own past, set right here in Ireland. I was going to hear this whether I wanted to or not, so I snuggled down under the quilt and nodded for him to start. Excellent, he said. This is about the last time I was here in 1927. I thought you said you hadn't been to Ireland since the 19th century. Elwood had a minor problem with accuracy, and on occasion he needed reminding of his previous statements. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. I wrote that phrase, you know. Generously gave it to this writer I met, hairy fellow, only had 2 chairs, can't remember the name. He stopped and scratched one ear. What was I saying? 1927. Right. I did drop in for a bit. I mean that quite literally, too, but let me start at the beginning. It was a chill morning in May, New York. We slipped into our fleece-lined flight suits and clambered through the door of the cockpit. It was dark and cramped, almost all of the available space in the plane having been given over to fuel. Fuel was the key, you see. If we ran out, we'd plunge to our deaths in the fathomless depths of the Atlantic. I tied my silk scarf more firmly around my neck, confident both in my choice of sandwiches and my choice of co-pilot. Charles, I said, let's go make history. Wait, I couldn't stand it. Is this story going to be about Charles Lindbergh? No, this story is going to be about me. Charles Lindbergh is a secondary character. Now be quiet. Where was I? Elwood's eyes glazed over. Ah, yes, the plane, designed perfectly by myself, rose like a swan into the air. We flew out over the ocean to meet our destiny. Of course, all did not go perfectly. This isn't how great adventures play out. It was terribly cold. Charles complained bitterly. Soon, ice was clinging to the plane, weighing us down dangerously. I was forced to fly around the clouds as best I could, seeking clear pockets, even though doing so burned precious fuel. Much of the journey, I flew low over the waves, skimming above spouting whales, the great rolling waves of the ocean licking at our wheels. Charles slept. Although the battle to find a route through the storm left me exhausted, I did not sleep. On and on we flew, only my excellent choice of sandwiches and a flask of tea there to sustain us. Finally, I spotted a fishing boat. Land must be nearby. I had conquered the ocean, and what land could lie ahead? It could not be Portugal, not France, not even England. No, for such a great event as this, it could only be Ireland. In the distance, cliffs emerged, picked out in the moonlight, the graceful green hills of my homeland, rising from the sea like a mother's embrace. I nearly wept in my joy. There was no longer in my head any thought of fame, of glory, of adulation. Only I needed to know the glorious extent of my accomplishment. I landed the Spirit of St. Louis in a quiet pasture not far from this very spot. Ripping off my leather flying cap, I fell to the ground and kissed the verdant grasses of the Emerald Isle. Go to Paris without me, Charles, I said. Take for yourself the renown that will come when you arrive there. I could never wish for more than this. And so he flew away to Paris, and I gave him all the credit. I suppose he was grateful, should have been. He would have flown straight to Scotland if I hadn't pointed him in the right direction. Elwood? Yes, I love you. And I slept.
I read that earlier today, and it made me just as happy right now as it did earlier. Thank you for sharing that with us, Marian. I think for everyone that I've talked with who's read this, they love Elwood, and his slightly inaccurate histories are glorious.
Yeah. You know, every time he showed up on the page, he just dominated the scene. Mm-hmm. And that's great, but it's also kind of horrible because this is not his book. This is not his book. And in the course of rewrites, I knew that I needed to get him off stage before the end of the book, or he would just dominate the end of the book as well. And I threatened to kill him. And a friend of mine, a beta reader, was like, Marian, if you kill him, that is it. We are done. No killing Elwood. So I had to think of some other way to get him off screen without committing rabbit-icide.
And without spoiling the ending. You did a beautiful job. So. Excellent. Well, that was wonderful. And I just want to encourage everyone again that we're going to move towards the Q&A section here in a moment. So please feel free to chat in your questions for Marian. We'd love to kind of hear your thoughts and give you an opportunity to chat with her a bit. Before we do, however, we have some winners. So I'd like to announce those. Yes. So thank you all again for participating. This is the first time we've done something like this in a book launch, and I think it's a perfect fit for this book. So without further ado, the signed paperback copy goes to Ronaldo Williams. So congratulations. And what we're going to do is Marian has given me permission to place her email in the chat. So I'm going to have you reach out to her directly. Put that in there. So please feel free to reach out to her directly to get your free signed copy. So congratulations, Ronaldo Williams. And for the trading card set, congratulations to Wendy Rogers. Again, reach out to Marian, and she will get you one of those trading card sets. Very exciting stuff. Do what, Marian? They're adorable. They are absolutely adorable. And also, if you are interested in getting copies of the recipes that were sent, you can reach out to Marian. You can reach out to me. I've placed my email in the chat as well. Feel free to reach out to us, and we can get you copies of those recipes. So congratulations to both of you. Hope the rest of you are able to pick up a copy and read through it, and it's just a glorious story. So that being said, we're now going to open up the floor to chat, to Q&A. So please feel free to chat in any questions you might have. While that's happening, I'm going to kind of look through the chat and see if there have any that have popped up. So just going to roll through here. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. So Wendy's asking, how many complete rewrites did you do and how long did it take?
I wrote the original draft of this for NaNoWriMo in 2014, so 6 years ago, and the story never left me, and I thought about it a lot, and I think that a lot of the times writers are working really, really hard, and it looks like they're just staring off into space, but they're actually working totally hard, thinking about things, and there were problems with the original draft, and they needed fixing, and it took me a long time to figure out what that was, and I had never chopped 20,000 words off of a book before, and I thought it was really going to hurt, and it didn't, and so I wrote the new ending, and that made it, so I guess that's 2, and then that was the kind of developmental edit stage where you're making sure all the pieces are in the story that need to be there, and then you can edit for style and writing and character voice and stuff like that. So I worked my way through it another time over the course of a few years. I would put it down and then I would do other things, and then I would come back and pick it up and work on it some more. And true story, there were a couple of years where I was like, if I just had 2 weeks, trapped alone, snowbound in a hotel, I could finish this thing and it'd be done. And but I was really scared of it because I thought if I finish it, well, then you gotta do something with it, as long as you're still writing it, you're okay. But if you finish it, then you got problems. So I finally had to get tough with myself and finish that rewrite. So I guess I'm going to say 3 total. Plus, after Woodneath picked it up, we rewrote the whole thing again, making style changes and edits and stuff like that, just tweaking things, picking some stuff up and changing things around. And but there are some passages that are exactly the same as I wrote them in November of 2014. Exactly. I don't think Elwood has had very many of his words changed at all. He was just that strong right out of the gate. And so there's big swaths of it that worked really well the first time, and I just left them alone. And there's parts of it that are complete rewrite.
That's awesome. Did you use the services of different types of editors? Carol's asking.
Wow. For a while, in the last place we lived, belonged to a group that met, and we would bring a chapter, critique each other's work, and discuss it out and discuss our problems. So I would count that as editors. And I have brought it to Woodneath writers here and discussed it with people, but I did not have a complete book editor until after Woodneath picked it up. It was edited after that. First, I have a very exciting disregard for grammar on occasion, and which is just part of my style. That's how I write. That's the voice of the book. And I know drove the poor editor kind of, but trying to find that balance between my purposeful disregard of the rules of grammar and a knowing disregard of the rules of grammar as far as line reading goes. I have read a lot of books on editing or self-editing or how to self-edit yourself as a writer, and those were also really useful in learning how to be brutal to your own work, and how to make the choices you need to make it better, and not to be looking at it as a precious, perfect angel baby thing that needs nothing because it's perfect, my great art, and making those tough choices and letting it go and trying something different and new, and it does pay off.
Yeah. So this is not from anyone. This is just for me. I'm curious. I know you are kind of our resident NaNoWriMo expert,
Yes.
and that is phenomenal. How much did being familiar with Nano and going through the Nano process year after year, how much did that help you in the writing process of this book?
This book was a pretty early, only in Nano number 3 for me. Things I knew by then is my first book, Nano 2012, was inspired by the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, which I love, and which I learned to recite the prologue of in Middle English in high school and can still do, although I won't because, I'll let you go. But that book was really hampered in being so close to that source material. It was so tight. And typing my way through that 50,000 words and another 50,000 words, by the time I got to this 50,000 words in its first storytelling draft, I was much looser and more confident just through the repetition of writing things. You're bound to get better if you do it enough. And the other thing I've learned is to let go of my source material. I did a ton of research read whole books and took notes on them. Books on Irish folklore and Irish fairies, because these fairies are originally Irish, and none of that appears in this book. Well, very little. There's echoes, traces of it. All of it is inside my head, and what I had learned by then is to be able to let go of all that stuff, all that backstory that I know that it is not important for the reader to know. If it was important, I would tell you, and it's not. So that was, I guess, the thing that I learned the most from NaNoWriMo is to take it easy, relax, tell your story, don't get bogged down, keep moving.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you're right. It's really important as a writer to know your character's backstory, whether that makes it on the page or not, because you just know them so much more fully, and you're able to, which is fantastic. That's great. That's great, Marian. We'll see if anyone else has any other questions. Feel free to chat those in. Again, I know some people have asked, where can you get this? You can get this book anywhere books are sold, as well as at Mid-Continent Public Library to check out. So, do you use any software plotting stuff?
Oh boy, I'm kind of a Luddite. I'm notorious for my inability to use anything. I know a lot of writers who use Scrivener and really love Scrivener. I bought Scrivener because one of the bonuses of doing NaNoWriMo is that you can get Scrivener for half off, so that's a good deal. Join NaNoWriMo and write a book. So I tried Scrivener and so many buttons, and I was freaked out by all those buttons. And people are like, well, you can just watch, tutorials on YouTube about it. I'm like, I could, but so many buttons. So I actually write everything as Word documents, and I'm one of those writers who can only write from the beginning of the story to the end. I can't jump ahead to the exciting part. I have to write all the boring bits and then take them out later. So I seriously just do write everything as a Word document beginning to end, as many times as it takes, and very boring.
That's okay. Different styles for different folks.
Right.
So Carol's asking, why did you choose this book to partner with trading cards?
Part of it was the audience that the book's for. It's a middle grade book. And my children, when they were that age, were heavily into magic cards. And I know a lot of kids who are into Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm a baseball fanatic, and I thought baseball cards are lots of fun. So that's why I picked the cards, because I thought they would be fun and appropriate to the audience that it was meant for. I just thought they'd be fun.
Yeah, and I think it was amazing that our marketing department and Mikhail were able to step in and take this idea that that you brought to the table and really make it happen. I thought that was
It's
so
amazing.
fantastic.
And Mikhail was like, 8 is, maybe I'll make 3. And after a while I realized, oh, he's doing where he makes some spectacular and so detailed and amazing, masterful works of art. I'm like, Mikhail, they're trading cards, man. Just to, it was like 3 is great. That's awesome. 3 would be really beautiful, but they don't need to be like masterworks that you spend a month a piece on, Mikhail. So he did all 8, which is stunning.
It did, and they turned out so amazing. So, I think what Wendy will be the first to actually get to see these in person, and they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Great. All right. So here's another question: do you plan to use social media or other platforms to build your audience?
I am an Instagram person. One of the best pieces of advice I've gotten through programming, through the Story Center, and through people I've met and conversation programs is to get involved with social media that you are committed to or that you enjoy, because if it's laborious and painful for you to do it, it's not worth it. And I like Instagram. I'm a visual person. I love looking at other people's photographs on Instagram. So I post a lot on Instagram, and I really like it, and have met a lot of excellent writers there whose work I love, and I see new things that I think are inspirational there. I lurk on Twitter, and I have a very carefully curated Twitter feed, because Twitter's kind of a dumpster fire on occasion. So I just lurk there and don't get into any arguments with anybody and read beautiful things that make me happy. So that's my thing, and yeah, so I'm an Instagram person.
Well, you got a chance to work with our Square One small business a little bit.
Yes.
And they kind of helped. Did they help put together kind of a social media plan for you a bit, or
Yeah,
give you some pointers?
Yeah, we discussed like what I was doing and what I could be doing, and how to go about doing it. And I look forward to continuing to expand that and take the dive into websites and blogs and updates and stuff like that here as well. And they're just special, and I would recommend anybody talk to Square One, because a ton of expertise that would cost you $1 bajillion if you went out looking for it. And they give very generously of their time and their expertise, and they're wonderful, friendly, encouraging people who, they get a gold star.
I agree, and yeah, we have a lot of really wonderful, I think a lot of wonderful resources at Mid-Continent that folks and writers may not be aware of. I think a lot of folks are fairly familiar with like the storytelling certificate program offered through the Story Center, but things like Square One and others that are out there that can really help people get rolling. So just a quick plug for some of our great resources. So thank you, Marian. Let's see, were there any other questions? Did anyone else have any other questions? Feel free to chat those in. Once again, Marian's books are available anywhere the books are sold. Paperback, hardback, and ebook format, as well as through Mid-Continent Public Library. And Marian, while folks are having a chance to kind of chat in, any final questions, did you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I have a question for you, Dave.
Please.
This is the first time that Woodneath has ventured into the world of fiction. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, like, how is this process different for you than nonfiction books you've published, and what kind of fiction would you all be looking for in the future for people who are out there who might have something they want to do? Pitch?
Oh, that is a great question. That is a great question. So, yes, this is our first full fiction novel. We did a couple children's books earlier, but first full fiction novel, and the process was different, but in a way a little bit more straightforward. We weren't worrying about building indexes. We weren't necessarily doing fact checking with organizations. And I think the fiction really gave us the freedom to try some fun stuff. You know, we've talked at length about Mikhail in our marketing department stepping in and helping. We've talked about Square One stepping in and helping. And I was really excited to see, I'm going to speak again about Mikhail again, just his ability to jump in.
We're a fan club.
It's a fair fan club. The guy deserves more than than I can give as far as accolades, but really giving him the freedom to kind of do some unique things, like the trading card idea, which is not something that really would lend itself very well to nonfiction, at least not that I've seen. Again, the fact that you talked about the grammar, about how you kind of on occasion broke rules with grammar, and that may be a little more forgiving in fiction than it is in nonfiction. I think this was just an opportunity for us to have a whole lot of fun with it. And as far as other projects coming up, I'm very excited to kind of open the door to fiction now. We've done some really great books in the past, but this really is helping us springboard into that next section. And I know we've had some people submit some things like some sci-fi. We've got a poetry anthology coming up, which obviously poetry kind of walks that balance between fiction and nonfiction. So I'm jazzed to see what we're going to be able to do. And thank you so much for kind of helping us open this door to brand new stuff, because what we're doing is giving folks an opportunity to tell their story, whatever that story is. And the fact that we don't have like one genre that we live in, I think really gives us the opportunity to just put great work on display. So I'm excited to see what people put out there. So thank you for asking me a question, Marian. Yeah. And we had a cat.
That was my other Maria, who's my senior assistant and my senior editorial assistant. So she is always with me when I am writing.
Yeah, she's joined us on a few meetings and things, which is always good to see.
Like if she doesn't come through, it's just not a meeting.
That is fantastic. Well, I know we're popping up a few congratulations. There's been wonderful comments in the chat. Thank you all so much for engaging, sharing your congratulations, sharing your questions, sharing your snack ideas. Those are wonderful. And it sounds like people have just had a lot of fun with this. So thank you so much, Marian. I'm going to give folks just a few more minutes if they want to chat, and any other questions, feel free. While we're doing that, I think we have the link to our survey. So we're going to put that in the chat if we can, the link to the Story Center survey. And so that way you can hop on there. There we go. If you would be willing to hop on there and let us know what you thought about this event. If you have suggestions for other events, we'd love to hear your feedback. So thank you so much. Well, Marian, I think we've got a bunch of people that are just saying, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing with us. This is wonderful, and congratulations. And so I just want to say congratulations once again, Marian, for for this wonderful book.
It's a super fun adventure.
It was a fun adventure.
I think when we started this, I just want to I want everybody to have just a great time and enjoy themselves a lot, because if you have a choice on having a good time or not,
I think that's great advice. You know, if you have a choice on having fun, you should do that. So, so thank you for being a wonderful host. Thank you for bringing this book to Woodneath Press. I really do appreciate you doing that.
Thanks for nagging me into it, Dave.
Anytime. Okay, so a question about a link to the survey. If we could have that shared one more time, that would be fantastic. And see if we can drop that in the chat. So I'm going to put that in the chat for everyone. That is on the screen, and that is also in the chat there. So if you'd feel free to fill that out, we'd really greatly appreciate that. Well, one last time, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Marian. Please go out and grab a copy or rent or borrow a copy from the library of A Little Touch of Magic. You will not be disappointed.
So excited that it's in the library.
It's wonderful. We're glad to carry it. And I just want to thank you all so much for being here. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful evening. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event. All right.